Hello, I'm Sarah Lister from Sheffield Digital, and today I'm talking to Steve Edson, who is a freelance developer based in Sheffield. How did you start freelancing?
It's always been something I've been interested in. So when I was at primary school, I think it was, I just got asked by my school at the time if I could help with them with their new website. And it wasn't really something I'd kind of ever done. I've always been interested in like computers at that age. So I kind of got into it from a really young age through that. But after that, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do as an actual profession. I went to high school, and again, really enjoyed the IT side of things, but still didn't really know. And it wasn't until I went to uni and did information systems and the web development courses were the things that interested me the most. So that was kind of the route I went down. And then since then, it's kind of, as it kind of probably normally is, like websites for family and friends, and just sort of small projects. And then since then, it's been friends of friends, and then more recently, sort of like ex-work colleagues that have moved on to new companies and then reaching out that way. So it's kind of naturally built up from very small projects to more larger professional projects.
What types of projects do you mostly work on?
The vast majority is websites at a very high level. A little bit of sort of digital display banners, digital animations, and a couple of small email builds. But the vast majority is websites. But they can be anywhere from fully bespoke e-commerce sites, bespoke CMS websites, Shopify themes, looking at clients' existing code bases and kind of just consulting on that or giving them a code reviews. So and anything in between, really. It has been very, very varied.
Do you have a do you have a type of project that you really enjoy?
I specialize in Laravel on the back end and Vue.js on the front end. So if I could pick my own sort of technology, then I'd go with that. But sometimes if the client has specific ways they want to do things in, then I'm kind of always willing to be flexible as well.
And how do you go about acquiring new clients? So apart from the ones that kind of find you and come to you?
Yeah, I have been lucky where I've had a steady stream of people come to me, whether that's through word of mouth or through my website. So that's kind of been very helpful. But if I need to find work myself, I think first of all, I'll get in touch with previous clients because they kind of know and trust me. And they can, sometimes I'll just check in, see if there's anything they need. Other times I might think of an idea which would be good for their project and kind of bring that to their attention and see if it's something they want to do. And apart from that, just a range of things really. I've been getting in touch with agencies, trying to get on their sort of roster, and then they'll get in touch with me in future if they have any work. And then looking at things like the Sheffield Digital Slack, that's been helpful for, there's usually people in there that are asking for a person that can help with this or can do that. And then the other thing is just if I'm ever busy or if a project's not quite right for me, I'll pass it on to somebody else that I know. And then through that, it's kind of meant that they've then been more inclined to refer work to me when it's not fit for them.
Are you thinking about taking on some contracts as well as the sort of freelance style work as well?
Yeah, I think having like sort of contracts around the 3 to 6 month mark, it kind of takes that pressure off finding clients constantly. If you can kind of get a medium sort of sized contract like that, and it gives you that security that where you know that that's what you've got in for the next period of time. And then depending on how busy that contract is and what else I've got going on, I can always take on some smaller freelance jobs outside of hours if the contract allows.
And what methods do you use to decide on how much to charge for your freelance projects?
It's definitely been the area that I struggled with the most. originally, I say, working on projects with friends and family, I think looking back, I definitely, I probably charged what was appropriate for family and friends, but in the grand scheme of things, it was probably very little. Since then, I've tried to kind of charge what I should be charging based on market rates and other people. So I think not being afraid to ask out with other people that you know in the industry, just asking what their day rate is, or even giving them a quote and asking them to quote on it themselves to see if it lines up with where yours is. That definitely helped me early on, realizing that my pricing was way off for one reason or another. But yeah, I think just not being afraid to ask other people, and then asking clients what their budget is. Sometimes they're willing to share that, and it allows you to either tailor the scope of work to what their budget is, or realize that they might be willing to spend a bit more than what you originally had planned, and then kind of giving them the value from that.
Have you found any information that's available just publicly to give people a guide who do similar work to you, or do you think it is more of a case of just contacting people who are already well established?
I think there are pieces of information out there, but I've never really trusted how reliable they are. A lot of the time it can be based for freelancers in London, or a lot of it's America and things like that, and obviously their pricing's very, very different. And again, it all depends on what their skill level is and how quickly they work and things like that. So it's never quite felt, I think it's good as a very rough guide, but not as like, that's the price I'm going to set myself at.
Yeah, it must be hard sometimes to judge how long something is actually going to take. And also if you need to spend a bit more time than you expect.
Yeah, I think getting the timings on things can be very difficult sometimes, because you don't want to, if there's an area that I'm very quick at, I don't want to then charge or quote the time's too little, whereas it might take somebody else a lot longer, and vice versa. If there's something that's going to take me a little bit longer than somebody else, not making yourself too expensive compared to that person. So there's always a balance of kind of getting what's right for the project without leading to a quote that's either going to be way too little or way too big.
How do you think people can judge when it's the right time to change to freelance in your area of work?
I think there's always a risk to it, unless you've got a big project lined up from the get-go, which is going to be able to start after a notice period. But even then, it's what about the next project after that? For me personally, I saw a build-up of people getting in touch with me kind of happening naturally, and it felt like the demand is out there in order for me to make that switch to freelance. But there is always that risk. I think having backup plans, so if I do find that things change and the work suddenly stops, having savings just kind of get you through that maybe first month of not having the income, and always being prepared to go back into a permanent role if needs be. I think there's plenty of work out there where I'd hopefully be able to find something at least to tide me over until that demand comes back. But like I say, I think there always is. I don't think you can ever be 100% sure of it. I think there is always a jump, but doing the research, and at least for the next 3 to 6 months, I think there'd be enough demand to not have to worry too much about that.
Have you tended to find that you go from one project, you finish that, and then you move on to another one, or are there sometimes opportunities where you can continue to work with that person or the company to make improvements and that type of thing?
Yeah, a bit of both. I've had people get in touch with me about a very specific project where that's been done and that's been the end of it, and then there are other projects where we along the way chat about it and go, oh, it'd be good if we did this and that, and let's see how this goes and revisit this in 6 months' time. And where I've then said, actually, I've had an idea for this, and kind of proposed that idea to them, and they've liked it and got on board with it, and then that's led on to the next phase of the project. And sometimes getting an idea from one project makes you think, actually, we can bring that to this other person and being able to get in touch with them that way.
Yeah. And which of your qualifications or experience have been most valuable to you since you started freelancing?
I don't think there's one particular thing that I'd pull out. I think everything in combination has been really useful. So going to uni and putting me on that path for the web development, and those initial modules of teaching me the various parts was what got me into it in the first place. And I do think it's definitely skills that you can learn outside of uni. There's so much stuff online that can teach you it, but for me personally, it is what led me on that path. But then my first job was a very small company with about 5 people, and it was very much a mentality of, if we needed to do something and nobody had the skills to do it, you kind of just learn those skills. It wasn't always a case of having the capacity to get somebody else in or hire a new person to do that. So that it was very intense in terms of teaching me a broad range of skills, but also very in depth. And then the second company I worked at was an agency, so it's very similar, but more in terms of just such a wide range of projects. You know, one project could be completely different to the next. So again, giving me such a wide range of skills that I don't think I'd be able to get anywhere else. So it's not one particular thing that's kind of got me to where I am. It's all works quite nicely in conjunction with everything else.
How much of your freelance work comes from the Sheffield City region?
I'd say about 80% of it really. It's probably the vast majority. Because of how I've got started out, where it's been word of mouth and people moving on to new companies and get in touch with me that way, it has been very much like people physically based in the area that have kind of moving out themselves, but still very much within the region. There are some other people that find me through my website that are based elsewhere, but a lot of it has just been word of mouth. But I do think with the whole remote working situation that might start to change and branch out a little bit more as people are a bit more willing to have, as people are a bit more on board with the whole remote working thing anyway. They are getting more used to being able to hire somebody that's not 10 minutes away, that they can talk to on Zoom and be based anywhere in the country really.
How important do you think having your website is? Because I was very impressed when I saw your website. I thought it was really, visually impressive. So how important do you think it is? Because I know some people are obviously so focused on getting the work and doing the work. How important do you think that is?
I think it's very important really. I think it can be easy just to put up a quick site that's just got contact details, but I've had a website for years and years now, and it's been through various iterations. I've always done like blog posts and bits and pieces that I found useful, and it wasn't until recently that I kind of changed the focus for more of the freelance side of things, so showing what services I offer, and adding a few sort of case studies on the recent projects that I've done. And I have found that things have naturally picked up from that new website, so having more people contact me through the contact form or emails directly. And I do think a lot of that is a direct result of updating the website to show, here's what services I offer, here's some recent examples, here's how these clients' projects have been improved based on the work we've done. So I think it is easy to put all your time into clients and maybe side projects, but I do think it's definitely worth investing the time just on yourself as well.
Do you think social media can work well as well, or do you tend to focus on the website more?
I definitely think it can. I've found that I don't always feel like you get the sort of return on the investment sometimes. I feel there are plenty of people within the industry that have a big following, whether they've got thousands of followers or hundreds of thousands, and I think it's very easy to compare yourself to those people where you only have a few hundred. But a lot of that is, I think, just not putting the time in. I think if I did actively go on and on Twitter or whatever it was and kind of put posts out daily, then I might start to see that following increase. But personally, it's not been something that I've invested too much in just yet, but I probably should look at that in the future.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what do you think would be the best approach for somebody to find their first client work project as a freelance developer?
I think it depends on if they want it to happen naturally, or if they decide this is what I want to do and I want a project now. Again, if they were working on projects for friends and family, or things that they find interesting themselves as side projects, even if that work is free or kind of paid less than what it should be, if they're doing that work and publicizing that on their own website, social media, anywhere they can, I think over time people then naturally start to get in touch with them for additional work, and it would kind of naturally snowball from there. Alternatively, I think if they kind of wanted it to happen a bit more faster, I think just getting in touch with there are plenty of agencies around Sheffield, kind of telling them what your skills are, what your day rate is, your general sort of availability, and trying to get on their list of freelancers on their roster, because I think they'll be naturally, you know, how agencies work is that there's always time that they can't get the work in house, so they'll be more inclined to get in touch with you that way. And again, just mentioning things like the Sheffield Digital Stack. There's plenty of sort of job sites out there. And I know that I think like websites like Fiverr and stuff, like I've not really dealt with that myself, but I do know people that get a lot of success from that, so it might be worth kind of investigating that as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for offering your insight and experience.
No worries.